the rotten meal. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, because after hearing what happened in this prison kitchen, you'll never look at your food the same way again. The call came in just after sunrise. A correctional officer at the Michigan Department of Corrections had collapsed during his shift. The emergency team that arrived didn't find signs of violence. Instead, they found dozens of inmates clutching their stomachs, vomiting into steel sinks, and moaning in agony. Something was wrong with breakfast. By noon, the infirmary was full, and the warden ordered every tray collected for inspection. That morning's menu? Chicken tacos. At first, the outbreak was dismissed as food poisoning, an unlucky incident in a system that served thousands of meals daily. But when the kitchen supervisor opened the walk-in freezer, the stench hit him like a wall. Inside were trays of thawing meat, mottled gray and green, crawling with maggots. The date labels read expired 3 months ago. The supplier, a private contractor hired by the state, had been accused before of cutting corners, but this was different. It wasn't just negligence, it looked deliberate. Detective Claire Weston from the state's Bureau of Investigation was assigned to the case. She wasn't new to corruption, but what she found inside the prison walls shocked her. The inmates whispered about a kitchen trade, where expired ingredients were swapped for cash or favors. Guards had turned a blind eye for months, and the meals, once meant to meet federal nutrition standards, had become punishment on a plate. Weston started connecting reports from other facilities, rotting food in Jackson, moldy bread in Kinross, and a mysterious shipment of non-consumable chicken repackaged for inmate use. One of the inmates, Marcus Reed, a former line cook serving time for theft, slipped her a handwritten note during questioning. It read, "They know. Check the storeroom cameras, 3 a.m. When Weston reviewed the footage, her stomach turned. Under the flickering light of the kitchen, 2 men in correctional uniforms were unloading unmarked boxes from a delivery truck. No logos, no paperwork. Inside, she could just make out the faint words on one of the boxes. Animal feed, not for human use. By the time she looked up, the 2 guards in the video were already missing from the facility roster. Both had clocked out the night before and never returned. One left his uniform behind. The other left a note scrawled on a napkin. "Don't dig into the kitchen. It's bigger than food." And when investigators pried open the sealed freezer compartment behind the main kitchen wall, they didn't just find meat. They found something that shouldn't have been there at all, the hidden supply line. If you thought the first part was disturbing, wait till you hear what they found next. Don't forget to subscribe, because this story only gets darker from here. The hidden compartment behind the freezer was small, barely large enough for 2 men to stand upright, but the air was heavy with the smell of decay. Detective Claire Weston's flashlight beam swept across the space, a stack of sealed cardboard boxes, each stamped with the same words: property of Aramore Foods, contract hashtag 9B214, not for human consumption. She slid open the nearest box with her pocket knife and froze. Inside wasn't meat, but dozens of vacuum-sealed plastic bags containing a gray paste. No expiration date, no nutritional label, just a faint chemical odor that clung to her gloves. Forensic testing later revealed that the substance was a blend of spoiled animal protein mixed with soy fillers and preservatives, repurposed waste originally meant for livestock. Someone had been feeding this to hundreds of inmates across the state for months. The supplier's contract had passed inspection 5 times that year. Every report claimed full compliance. Weston realized the paperwork was forged, signed off by senior officials who never even set foot in the kitchen. When she pushed deeper into the chain, the corruption widened. At the Michigan State Procurement Office, a whistleblower named Evan Lang admitted he'd been forced to backdate safety certificates for shipments. "You don't understand," he said nervously during questioning. "If we don't move the product, we lose millions. These prisons, they're business now, not punishment." He handed her a flash drive labeled Supply Route A4. Inside were spreadsheets tracking deliveries, not just to Michigan, but to correctional facilities in Ohio, Virginia, and Illinois. The same contractor, the same poison system. At Fluvanna Correctional Center for Women in Virginia, a similar outbreak had occurred just weeks before. The kitchen shut down for 3 days after inmates found roaches baked into cornbread trays. The local warden claimed it was a storage issue, but Weston's investigation connected the dots: the same truck company, the same falsified codes. This wasn't negligence anymore. It was organized exploitation, shielded by bureaucracy and greed. One late night, as Weston reviewed security footage from the Virginia kitchen, she noticed a shadow in the corner of the frame, someone watching the food prep from a restricted maintenance door. She paused the video, zoomed in, and felt her pulse quicken. The man wasn't an inmate or a staff member. He was wearing a civilian jacket with a company badge clipped to his pocket, More Foods. But there was something even more disturbing. The timestamp on the video was 1 week after the contractor had officially terminated their state contract. Whoever that man was, he was still inside, after hours, and no one in the prison ever reported seeing him again. Weston had stumbled onto a trail that was no longer about food safety. It was about power, profit, and a cover-up buried deep inside the American prison system. But before she could act on her findings, someone leaked her name to the press, and the next morning, her car window was smashed, her laptop gone, and a single note left on her seat: the meal ticket to hell. If you've made it this far, you deserve to know how deep this goes. But be warned, what you're about to hear might change the way you look at every meal behind bars. Subscribe if you dare, because this truth almost got buried forever. Detective Claire Weston hadn't slept in 2 days. Her laptop was gone, her car vandalized, and her whistleblower contact, Evan Lang, wasn't answering his phone. When she finally traced his last signal, it led to an abandoned rest stop outside Detroit. His car was there, doors unlocked, engine cold. On the passenger seat, a half-eaten sandwich and a flash drive melted from heat. But in the trunk, tucked under a spare tire, she found what would break the case wide open: stacks of falsified invoices, each signed with the same name, Deputy Warden Harold Creston. Creston had managed food contracts for 5 facilities across the Midwest. To outsiders, he was a quiet administrator, a man who kept the numbers clean. But to those who worked under him, he was feared. Rumors said he took bonus shipments, food meant for inmates that he resold to third-party distributors. Every dollar saved meant another cut in his pocket. Weston realized the rotten chicken, the contaminated paste, the expired stock. All of it was part of Creston's operation to launder state funds through fake food deliveries. She confronted him at his office. The blinds were drawn, the air thick with the smell of burnt coffee. Creston barely looked up from his desk when she entered. "You shouldn't have come here," he muttered. "You don't understand how many people eat off this system." His words were calm, almost rehearsed. "These inmates, they're not taxpayers. They don't vote. Nobody cares what they eat." He slid a file toward her. Inside were photographs, Weston's home, her car, even her sister's apartment. "You're in too deep, detective. Walk away before you become part of the menu." She left without a word, but she had already copied his files to an encrypted drive. That night, she emailed every document to the Marshall Project and Civil Eats. Within days, headlines exploded. Prison food scandal, state officials implicated in contaminated meal cover-up. Inmates fed animal waste, officials took kickbacks. The Department of Corrections launched a full investigation. Creston resigned, then disappeared. The private contractor, More Foods, denied everything, claiming the evidence was fabricated by a disgruntled employee. But when federal agents raided one of their warehouses outside Cincinnati, they uncovered barrels of spoiled meat, invoices linking to prisons across 6 states, and shredded contracts dumped in black bags. Still, not everyone made it out clean. Evan Lang's body was found weeks later in a river near the Ohio border. Official cause: suicide by drowning. But Weston knew better. His hands were bound. Her badge was suspended pending review for improper evidence handling. They tried to silence her, but it was too late. The story was already out, spreading across every major outlet. Families of inmates began filing lawsuits. Politicians promised reform. The public was outraged, not just at the system, but at the inhumanity hidden behind it. Months later, Weston stood outside the prison gates in the cold morning air. The chow hall had been rebuilt, new suppliers hired, and oversight committees installed. But the memory of what she'd seen, the smell, the rot, the apathy, lingered like a scar. As she turned to leave, a prison guard she'd never seen before passed by, pushing a cart covered with a white sheet. A delivery tag dangled from the handle. She caught a glimpse of the logo beneath the fold, Aramore Foods. Weston froze. The company had supposedly been shut down. The driver smirked and whispered as he walked past. Different name. Same recipe. She watched the cart roll through the gates and disappear into the gray morning mist. The truth hadn't been destroyed. It had just been rebranded. If you think this story was intense, the narrator's voice would echo at the end. You're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe before they silence the next truth.